welcome to the JALTCALL podcast. I'm your host for the day, Brian Gallagher, and I'm joined by Jeff Carr in Hokkaido. Jeff, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks, guys.
Jeff, we've got two fantastic guests today, our conference chairs for 2026. We have got James York and Jeanette Dennisson. James conducts research on the application of ludic approaches to language teaching. His teaching research is centered on games and literacy, including language education, game design, and game literacy. James also edits Ludic Language Pedagogy, an open access journal that publishes research on the integration of games and play in language contexts.
And Jeanette Dennisson from Atlanta, Georgia, USA is now professor at the Department of Medical Education and Humanities at St. Mariana University School of Medicine. Jeanette is one of the rare language teachers in Japan who has a biochemistry background as a chemistry graduate of Georgia Tech and molecular biology at Chiba University. Her research and her work right now focuses on using chatbots for medical discourse and medical conversation, and Jeanette has done research with a lot of people, not on a lot of people, in JALT, including cooperation with our own JALTCALL Gary Ross and James York, her co-chair for this year's JALTCALL conference.
James and Jeanette, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us on. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it is great.
James,
first time.
You're based in Tokyo.
That's right.
At Meiji University, and Jeanette, you're also in the Tokyo area.
Yeah, it's right outside of Tokyo in the Kawasaki area.
You guys are going to be our conference chairs for 2026 at Nishinomiya. James, you've actually hosted, or you have been chair for JALTCALL before, right?
That's right. Yeah, I was the chair in 2022, I believe, which was an online conference.
Right. Okay. So of course that's post-COVID, and your speaker that you invited there, your keynote speaker was James Dehan.
Jonathan Dehan.
Dehan.
That's a mix of both of our names together. But yeah.
So you and Jonathan have done some research and publications together, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thick as thieves, you might say.
Right, and so the speciality that you guys do is working on ludology, which of course is the study of games and the mechanics of games.
Yeah, so we take we use the word ludic, which comes from ludology, and we use that as a term kind of against games, because I think that, we specifically use the word ludic because we wanted to include as many forms of games and play that exist, rather than just focusing specifically on digital games, which is kind of the hot topic since 2001, I guess, since digital games became more consumer forward. But yeah, so essentially, I think educators and the research, if you look at it through a ed tech lens, they're going to hype the latest invention like VR or digital games or online games, massively multiplayer online games. Whereas boots on the ground teachers like me, you, the people here, the research on games doesn't really affect what we can actually do in the classroom because it's hard for us to bring those kinds of tools in. And so there's a whole kind of untapped swath of games like board games, card games, conversation games, play, drama, all of this kind of stuff I think fits under a ludic banner, which is why we use that term rather than game-based, because I think game-based has a particular connotation to people.
Right. And so even teachers who are not using a lot of technology in their class, they use lots of games, lots of from the earliest ages of children right up to adults, and of course back through history. So games have been used for teaching for a long time.
James, can I ask you a question on?
Go for it.
I am not terribly familiar with ludology and a lot of the applications and sort of thing. And I'd like to ask, how would you distinguish what you've just described as ludology or a ludic approach to pedagogy from the buzzwords like gamification or a playful approach or playfully oriented approach to education? Because they seem tangential but not the same.
Yeah, exactly. So fighting against terms like gamification is kind of one of the things that I've done most in my work. And so outside of education, gamification has been called the death of play because it pushes behavior into a particular direction. It's like dangling a carrot or punishing. It's like having a stick behind you to push you in a certain direction, right? And I think that people might say, well, that's a crude approximation of what gamification can be. But then I would say that if you look at all the research on it and what teachers generally think about gamification, then the kind of status quo is extrinsic rewards and, trying to give like these different paths and, progress markers, which, yeah, I mean, I think that's what gamification is. Whereas what I'm promoting is more of this idea of ludic teaching is being the use of ludic materials, which is games, play, drama, things like this, but also using the ludic in us as playful creatures. We can call us homo ludens in the fact that we are, not only homo sapiens, the knowing creature, but also the playing creature. And I think that we, as teachers, how do we manifest our play in the classroom? It's not through, points, leaderboards, badges, which is making it more competitive, but it's through our pedagogical choices. It's, do we do something playful or not, or so how ludic compares to things like gamification is.
That sounds really interesting. Do you mind if I follow up on exactly where you're going there?
Yeah, please.
It sounds like what you're saying is that the ludic approach, or seeing us and our students as homo ludens in this case, means presenting either material or skills practice or whatever it is that we are trying to create as a goal for our students to them in such a way that they can use games, game-based play, or even just ludic behavior as a way to approach that goal rather than more structured pedagogy. Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think one of that's definitely it. And there's obviously lots of nuances there, but a clear way for listeners to understand the difference, I guess, is do you try to create do you try to create the classroom environment like a game, like a winnable game, like a competition? That's what gamification is. I'm going to change all the classroom terms, which we already have, like tests and scores and grades, and I'm going to turn these into game-like words. That is the shallowest and most common form of gamification. Whereas what I'm saying is we can use games, we can use play, we can be playful as humans within the classroom. So it's like, do you structure the classroom as a winnable game, or do you use those games and play as a tool within the classroom? So it's like a meta versus kind of within kind of different differentiation, I think.
Okay. The theory has clarified my mind quite a bit here. Now I feel like both I and the listeners, players, maybe, if you will, need an example of the difference.
Okay.
What would that be?
So let's say you want to teach about capitalism. I don't know. We want to teach about capitalism.
Why would you want to teach it? No. Okay, go ahead.
And so we create a kind of meta game where if you put your hand up to answer a question, you get 1 point or something. And the person that answers the most questions gets the most points or something like this. Like that would be, oh, you're getting points for doing something in class. Okay. Or you could say, well, we're actually just going to play Monopoly in class and then deconstruct it, look at it, have a reflective discussion about the game Monopoly. So it's structuring the class as game or using a game as a tool in the classroom. I think that would be the difference.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that helps me see it. Thanks.
So, of course, JALTCALL are a co-sponsor of the upcoming Pi-SIG conference, which will be held in Okinawa with Okinawa JALT. So, of course, that is being held February 20th through 22nd. So, I'm going to be down there as a JALTCALL rep and promoting our conference, of course. But I'm also going to be myself. I'm going to be doing a bit of a ludological presentation. So I'm going to try and show people some of the design of games and how they can design and create games for their students, and also how the students themselves can create games that they can use for review and things like that as well. So, of course, we'd encourage everybody to go to the Okinawa STEAM conference down in Naha. Jeanette, you have been involved with JALTCALL for some time now. So, of course, you are an American, and you have a background in chemistry and molecular chemistry. Is that right?
Biochemistry. Well,
Biochemistry.
it includes molecular biology and
Biochemistry. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, of course, biochemistry is a very tough, topic. So, I've got an undergraduate in physiology and sports science. I've done biochem and a lot of neuroscience.
I had a little bit of overlap with that as well. So
yeah. So, so that, of course, that's a great thing when you're in teaching, that you can have very different expertise from other people. So, can you tell us a little bit about so your background there with the different universities you work with, so like Chiba University and Nihon?
That's right. So I define myself as a scientist, not a teacher. I just want to put that out there right now. So I always go into universities trying to help people think like a scientist, and then the language comes with it. And so I've worked at various universities. I started at Chiba University and the science department, teaching us science, English course specifically. And that led to other opportunities in medical departments. And then that's where I found my wheelhouse and where I stayed. So my first medical department I worked at was Nihon University, as you mentioned. And that brought me back to Chiba University's medical department. And it's funny, I only worked in the medical departments, and I didn't know what the rest of the big universities doing in sense of their English language education. I felt very isolated. I worked mainly with doctors and developing curriculum for the medical English specific criteria and stuff like that. And so through my journey as a scientist, I also had to learn about TOEFL, TESOL, I guess, excuse me, TESOL. And I remember the first time I had to learn what SLA was. And through professional development, I learned more about how to develop a curriculum, and then specifically gear that to medical education and understanding the needs of a medical student by interacting with the doctors directly. And through pretty much experience, I built up over 10 years, 15 years now, I think now, of experience in this field. And now I'm at St. Mariana running the department and organizing a new curriculum at the moment. And along my path, I fell into Gary Ross through JALTCALL activities and some, I don't know if it was Pan Sig. We fell upon each other over a beer, and our paths aligned, and we realized what his technology that he was building, a speech, a practice, and my desire to have some kind of tool to help students speak. Because one of the biggest problems in medical education and bringing back the idea of isolation is one English teacher in medical education, and in my case, she's responsible for all the students. And the biggest limitation is, how do I get them to speak when there's only one of me? And so I was trying to use technology to help me. And Gary gave me some great ideas and supported me. And we got a grant in 2023 that supported our research efforts. And we started making a chatbot utilizing ChatGPT and making a conversational partner specifically for the medical English context. And we've been trying to find tools such as these chatbots to support the communication that students are automatically get when there's large size classrooms, limited resources. And so that's where I find myself right now, and still pursuing that
So
vision of.
when
Mhm.
when nurses and medical people are interacting with patients, there's a lot of repetition in the kind of like the pre-doctor interview, like what are your conditions, like what blah blah blah. And so I think in Kumamoto, I saw you present with Gary there, explaining like how the roles, or I guess other people maybe call it role play, but like basically what is the dare I say script that you have to go through with patients. So I think that that presentation, the room was jam packed. When you guys were doing that, I think that there was a lot of people were really, really kind of interested in it. So of course it was very, very kind of new at the time. So how is
Yeah,
that going with
yeah.
Gary? Is that coming to an end,
So
or?
that I'm glad you brought that up. That I think that was our like one of our first presentations, because we were very innovative before everyone knew how to use a chatbot for speaking. Like people were using it for information or using it for just texting and sharing and trying to get something out of it. And we went beyond that and we're saying, wait a minute, it has ideas like a human. Why can't it be our conversation partner? And I think a lot of people weren't ready for that yet, and they hadn't applied that to their classrooms yet. And that's where all the buzz started. And now the technology has caught up with us. There's a lot of talking chatbots, and people are probably dabbing with it for their own task-based learning or whatever, because there's all kinds of conversations that we need to practice depending on the field. In my field, as you mentioned, nursing and medical professionals, they have a very specific task, which is a medical interview. And so that is where we targeted our practice partner. So we created a patient to be the chatbot. So I call him the AI patient. So he, through a lot of prompt engineering and trial and error, we created ChatGPT to enact a patient scenario with all the students. And we've been collecting a lot of data and looking at the limitations of it. For example, one of the biggest limitations of using a chatbot for this particular case is that ChatGPT is designed to be helpful. And this is actually not what we want. We want a patient to be unhappy and sad. And if the patient changes to be helpful, that's very strange in a realistic environment. So we've been really struggling with this, how chatbots are trained to be and what we actually want it to perform. And that's part of the research. And we'll be getting some papers out soon so you can see what we have found. And so please look forward to that. It gets very interesting. We're fighting the current, essentially, of how chatbots are supposed to be made.
making it more realistic. Right, everybody, that's us for part one. Join us in part two when we're going to get into a wee bit more talking about further research and also the JALTCALL 2026 conference. Join us after the break. Right, welcome back, everybody, to the JALTCALL podcast with me, Brian Gallagher, Jeff Carr, James York, and Jeanette Dennisson. Guys, in the first part, we were talking about some of your background, and we mentioned a little bit about some of the conferences that we've had with JALTCALL before. So, James and Jeanette, can you tell us, can you remember when was your first JALTCALL that you came to?
I can actually. It was 2013. I don't know where it was, but I've got the best of Jout on the wall to prove it.
Oh, wow.
That's cool. Very nice. Do you remember what it was that you
Absolutely
presented?
Yeah. So at the time, I was working on a Minecraft server, which is a game which is kind of like a multiverse. I hope the audience have heard of Minecraft and they can understand what it is. So basically, I set up a Japanese language school in Minecraft to teach the JLPT N5 content, and I was doing a presentation about that. But you see, this is the thing. The reason I got the Best of Jolt for JALTCALL award is because I decided to give the whole presentation in Minecraft. So I would walk around the area that I'd created, and I'd have signs that would be like the slide. So I'd look at the slide, I'd look at the sign, and then move on to the next place, and then look at the next slide. Honestly, it's been one of the most innovative presentations I've ever done, and I always think about that presentation. Like, yeah, I should definitely do something cool like that again, but I haven't emulated it since. But yeah, that was probably my first JALTCALL. Yeah.
That is really cool.
Sounds really cool. I'm sad I missed that. That sounds awesome.
Can you remember what the location was for that conference?
I have no idea. I really can't remember.
2013. We'll check it. And Jeanette, for yourself, what was your first JALTCALL?
Wow. I told you before that I'm not a language person. So when I first came to JALT in general, I was like deer in headlights. And I had a mentor at the time, Diane Nagatomo, who held my hand essentially and kind of showed me the ropes and made sure I wasn't alone the whole time, because JALT itself is huge, right? And I was already in the like science and CLIL and EMI kind of world, medicine. So a lot of it didn't really apply, and I was still learning what ER was and all these things. So I would go to these rooms not knowing exactly what I was watching. And slowly, when I eventually got a presentation, it was always on that Monday when no one shows up. And that's when I saw 5 people in the room. And I was kind of sad at first, but then I realized these 5 people are my people. And through that, those 5 people became the people who connected me to the other parts of JALT, like the SIGs. Understanding what SIG is appropriate for me. I learned that Q was really supportive. And then CALL. I naturally like technology. I went to Georgia Tech. Everyone, all of my friends are techie. My best friend is like software engineer, so I naturally have interest, not personal knowledge of how to code or program myself, but the desire to use technology was immediate. And so I naturally attracted to these people. And then I started going to those specific topics within the big JALT. And then once I got encouraged to go to the PanSigs and the JALTCalls, I realized those are the smaller communities. And that's where you get to be closer and get to learn people and network. And I don't know if it was before I met Gary or after I met Gary at PanSig, but he was like, JALTCALL is where you should be. And he really said, you should not only be a presenter, you should be a part of the team. He kept on saying that to me at the very beginning. And I was hesitant because I don't feel very inclined to be a language teacher, right? So I was hesitant, and I did join some of the meetings at the JALT. And I remember meeting Robert Dykes and some other people for the first time, and still feeling overwhelmed. And even being invited to do the co-chair to this conference, I was still like, are you sure? Because people don't know me. People don't know what I've done. I've always been observer. And the only reason I really said yes is because I know you all in this room right now. I knew you guys. And you were so encouraging and so supportive. And that networking mattered to me. And through my own experience of being an outsider, looking from the outside in, I know how people feel. And one of my goals when I said yes to be a co-chair was to make sure that JALT is not forgetting the people on the outside and try to hold their hand and bring them in, just like Diane did at the beginning.
Yeah. So actually, at JALTCALL, we always have a lot of people who are new. They like to kind of come to the conference. We have a lot of people that come from overseas as well, and so I guess most people know that that JALT in general, the membership has been slipping over the years. We're over the peak, and we're now kind of like settling to the numbers that we have. So, of course, it's very important to go to many kind of like different conferences and to to experience, like the different flavors in different places. James, so looking through your research, so you've been to lots of conferences and you've published in lots and lots of different publications. So for people who are wanting to publish, what do you think people should do? Like when it comes to choosing conferences or choosing journals.
That's a good question. I've not really published much in Q1 journals. I've got one paper in Call, I believe, but an FLA, I guess, Foreign Language Annals. So yeah, okay. So I think that you should choose a journal that you read. If you read it a lot, then it's probably something that you're going to have a place for your own work, which is why I published in Call and FLA. Another thing is the conference proceedings. They're often a good place to get your foot in the door on academic publishing, especially with the JALTCALL proceedings, which I've been the officer in charge of that for 2 years, I think. Just to see the quality of the papers come in, and it's a very kind of friendly atmosphere to publish in. Essentially, I think that the people that are in charge of it and the level of the number of words that you have to type for a start is less than you would for a Q1 journal, for example. But for me personally, this is probably not going to be applicable for a lot of people in the audience. But still, I was having a lot of trouble trying to find somewhere to publish on analog games in language teaching, because obviously it's not a call topic. So what did I do? I started my own journal. So we are registered on the digital online open access. So the directory of open access journals. We're on there. We're looking for Scopus indexing.
Can
soon.
I pipe in there? And I'm going to say, that's the first time I heard that, and that's awesome. And you say it's not applicable to our audience, but I think it is. The idea that if it's not there, make it happen. That's what me and Gary did. Like, it wasn't there. So I was like, Gary, what can we do about it? And we troubleshooted our own problem. So I cheers to you. That's awesome, James.
So sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, no problem, Brian. I was just, Jeanette, I wanted to follow up with you on that. And I'm calling you Jeanette here, and it feels extremely unnatural because I always call you JD. So I'm just going to go with JD instead, if you're all right with that.
That's fine.
I know the first time I heard you present was at PanSig 2023 in Kyoto, when you and Gary were presenting one of the very early versions of your chatbot. And everybody in the room was entirely bamboozled by what you were doing with that. And could you walk us through a little bit of what it's like to try to take a project like that, where the initial impact is extremely high and everybody is just astounded, and now you've made multiple presentations and multiple iterations of the project since then? How do you continue the work? How do you set up the goals? How do you sort of iterate through a project like that and keep it going for others who might be doing the same kind of thing?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, I'm naturally intuitive. I'm a scientist, all right? So I just look at the data, collect the data, look at the data and say, what's wrong? How can we make that better? That comes from looking at the actual output, but also looking at the students' reaction to it. Like me and James did a thing using VR. We just had a pilot test this year, but we had unexpected reaction. The student said, we compared the original like PC version of ChatGPT and speaking to like regular role play with your partners versus the VR version. And they were like, and then we also have simulated patients, real people who come in and they are interviewed like real people. So we have all these levels of interaction. And we found that VR was a nice little center between the real person and the regular practice. The regular practice being like either with a person, their classmate, or with the PC, which is not very realistic. And what they felt is the reality.
Let me
Yeah.
interrupt for a second. A nice little center there. Do you mean kind of like a Goldilocks point between two particular situations that you're trying to achieve or describe? What do you mean by that?
Goldilocks point. I've never used that term. So I don't know, clarify. Like I would not use that term, but
Not too hot, not too cold, just right for
oh.
whatever set of goals that you
Well,
have in
yeah,
mind.
I guess if
Or
we're looking at technology and how to use it, it's like sometimes we try to go too far. And we have a keynote who will talk about VR in more detail, I hope. She, Marissa, she knows the struggles with VR. If you try to overtake your classroom with VR, that's not practical, right? But also, you have to look at the limitations of your classroom as well. Like, not all people want to talk to their classmates, and not all people can have the access. Not we don't have enough simulated patients for everyone to talk to them freely at any time. So the limitations of my class makes me have to think: how do I apply the technology at the appropriate level? The Goldilocks, I like that now. The Goldilocks level, where not too much because it's too expensive to have 100 VR machines, not too little where they get bored and frustrated talking to their classmates. So something in between. You have to find what fits the actual environment you're in. And people have been interested in my area because they could see applications of to what I'm using, how I'm using ChatGPT as a chat friend or chat partner to their own situations. Maybe it's not so intrusive versus some other methods that people are trying right now. How can we just add an extra activity? So that's another thing. We don't want them to be overloaded with always using AI all the time. But we also don't want them to get exhausted using their friends who don't give them feedback or who speak bad English anyways, or those things are also not fun. So there's a middle ground. You have to find a balance of how much AI interaction activities, how much human interaction activities, and then this is the key. Being the scientist I am, then evaluate that, get feedback on that, and see. You can't decide as looking as a teacher. You have to hear from the actual people doing it. Where is the good middle ground, the Goldilocks point? And we found that VR was helpful, but also not practical for everyone to use all the time. So there's limitations, even if you do find a good Goldilocks point.
Okay, so what I hear you saying then is that the process of figuring this out is very much a two-way street. That you are doing things, but also receiving information constantly. And to iterate correctly, you have to create a feedback loop that is sensitive to current state and desired state, and trying to find steps in between that'll help you reach that. Okay.
And so I want to follow up on that. My next project, and I have a new part-timer who's going to work with me. It's actually our JALTCALL treasurer. Michael Phillips. He and I bonded at last JALT, excuse me. And we found out we have similarities, just like me and Gary bonded, just like me and James bonded through networking. We just met really for the first time. And I realized he does reflective learning. And that's his research. And so we're going to work this year with our new version of my chatbot and incorporates actively this reflective learning. You just did this activity. Reflect on it. Tell us. Share your thoughts. And this loop, continuous loop of them reflecting on their own experiences, and then I seeing that reflection and understanding really their own feelings, immediate feelings, not a survey at the end of the semester, but throughout the course.
Can I ask? So, is that a course that's under development that's focused on that kind of complete package?
So my course that I've been teaching, which is a medical communication class for fourth year students, it's the same course I did last year. But this time I'm inviting Michael to join me to add this extra component, small activities throughout the course to encourage this reflective learning. So just an added extra token activity. So you do a task, reflect on it. the task has already been decided from last year. That hasn't changed. But the reflection part we added this year. So
Right.
it's a small change that you could add. So anytime you introduce some technology or even games, if it's James, having a reflective part of that at the end of each of those tasks is informing both you and the students themselves. What did they learn? What did they experience? Do they like it or not? What did they struggle with? We
Right.
can both see it, and we can see it live. And so I'm really excited about this year and seeing how the students reflect on that and how I learn from their experiences.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Actually, at my university, so we've come to the 100-year anniversary this year, and they were looking for us to develop new courses. And I proposed a ludology course so that we would have, over the course of 15 weeks, we would learn 10 different board games. And so each week had a specific game that we played, and there were games that I had chosen specifically because either the mechanics of the game in itself or the context that it's within would hopefully allow us to generate a lot of discussion. And a lot of that was based on so of course the discussion comes through the gameplay, like as you struggle to learn something unique, but then also like after the gameplay. So each week the students would have to write a reflection on what was the experience of it. So there's one of the games. I'm holding a card now. It's called When in Rome. James, have you ever heard of this game here?
I haven't actually, no.
So When in Rome is a kind of travel trivia game where people actually ask the questions of each other, and so there is a game board, and there are some question cards, but also it's linked with the Amazon Alexa, so that people can use their own language. So it's for them to interact with the technology and hopefully to get that information and then to try and digest it and then discuss it together. I think it was too much for my faculty to go with that so unique.
Well, this is part of the problem. It's small changes, not big changes that we need to think about.
Yeah.
With
so
technology
the way that
as well. Look, we can't introduce this whole class is going to be on VR, right? They're not ready for that, right? One day is VR. Let's play.
What you're both pointing towards, again, from a game design cycle, I guess, is this idea of iteration as teachers, and this links to the conference theme as well about the failing and prevailing. I think that fails have to come in order to prevail at some point. Okay, sometimes things might be a success from day one, but
we had to identify the failures, actually.
Of course, yeah. So we have to try, fail, see what went wrong. And then this is a kind of the scientific cycle or the game design cycle.
Sometimes we don't even notice the failures. We're moving so fast. We just do the class or we just implement this game and we're not actually slowing down and saying, wait a minute, is this working?
Yep, absolutely. That's it. Yeah. I mean, it's in the design of the pedagogy or the classroom or the curriculum, and then you put it together. So you actually try it out, you play test it, and then how did the play test go? How did it actually go? Reflect on it, and then iterate again around the cycle.
Right.
Yeah.
So
sorry, I was going to say that's one of the major parts about all of this being tied back into SLA is that we have to grade at some point student performance, and we have to quantify that, right?
Yeah.
And you guys, whether it's ludology or whether it's the discourse bots with reflective learning, as you're talking about here, Jeanette, your goals, are they more measurable proficiency gains or increased engagement, participation?
You picked on something really hard. I mean, and my philosophy is I'm going to pull you as far as you can. So if you're at level A, I explain this always to everybody. If you're at level A and you can't see me physically, but you have a starting point. Every student has a different starting point with English levels, right? But they're all in one big classroom. So how do you measure performance when they all start at the same different points? And so this is one of the biggest challenges that I, as a teacher, say, how do I grade these equally? And my university is all about equal. Everything has to be standardized. Everyone has to get the same treatment. But I had to push back on it. And I'm like, you can't start at this level, fluency of B1 versus a C1 student who are like a lot of experience, international experience, whatever, and put them in the same criteria and expect them to achieve the same goals. For me, that doesn't work, but that's the limitations of my class and the environment I'm in. So I have to think and reflect on this constantly. How do I make it equal, but also challenging enough for everybody? And I try to pull as hard as I can, but be gentle when they're struggling, right? So rubrics are very important, especially in my university. If you don't have a rubric, no one knows how you're going to be graded. There's going to be a problem, right? So rubrics are a guide. It gives the students structure, especially in medical. They love checking off a list of things I've done. I can do this. Outcomes. Actually, medicine is judged by outcomes. They use the word outcomes in medical education versus like pass failed. More like I am able to. So I try to use that as well. But it's a really big challenge. I'm still struggling with that. So I have no clear answer, but it is a balance. What the university wants, what I think is right, we're still balancing that out right now.
Right. Well, I am able to. I can statements there sounds very much like a Cepher-pegged kind of skill. It's related back to that. But James, do you use that kind of behavior when it comes to games or ludic activities in class and that sort of thing?
It varies very much on what kind of class that I'm teaching. I teach about 5 or 6 different types of classes, but from the language teaching classes that I do, I've experimented with different things, similar to what Jeanette's talking about. I've had students, so a typical framework for me has students play the same game twice or maybe 3 times, which they can then compare their performances over the play sessions that they've done. And so that it can be an individual kind of growth assessment there. Another way that I've had students assess their performances is with a portfolio of their performances that they hand in at the end of the course. So again, if they've been playing the game multiple times, they're always recording their gameplay sessions. So this is one of the key things that I do in my classes that use games is I have students record their interactions and then transcribe them, write it out so they can see what they've said verbatim. Because I talked about this with Jeanette yesterday, but if you get an AI tool to transcribe some audio that's not native perfect, it will fill in the gaps for you. So I actually have students transcribe by hand. So it is verbatim and the mistakes do still exist. And what I've had students do is also submit a portfolio of their best performances over the sessions. Like, oh, I'm submitting this because I used I'm used the past progressive, or I'm selecting this because I used a relative pronoun, or I didn't forget to put a or the in this sentence, so I'm submitting this. So I've had students submit like that as well.
That sounds like noticing. I learned about noticing as well.
Noticing. I was going to say something similar. I was just going to say you're asking students to do a meta-analysis of their own conversation, right?
Yeah, and the reason really I came up with this is because one of the kind of negative aspects of some games, I guess, is that you'll have a student that has to sit out because they've been eliminated early on. And so a student just said to me, well, it was a message, but it said, what if I die when York comes? And because before I would go to each group and just sit there for 10 minutes and just rate their performance.
Well, there's the failure right there. They need to reflect on the failure.
But that's not their fault, though. The fault is of the game. Like, you may die early.
You can negotiate that at the start of the game. You can have you call it your local rules. So you can say, like if you get killed, in most games, have that, like you get a second life or a third life, or you can play a card or a joker, so you can.
But the best way I came up with it though is just do it multiple times and then give me a portfolio. So,
so you found a solution through your failures.
I wanted to back to again. This is the ludic. This is the ludic in us. It's like coming up with a creative solution to a problem. It was like, well, how can I make a safe space for them to enjoy themselves as well, right? So it's not a one-time test. It's I'm just going to enjoy playing, use my language, and then look through it afterwards and submit that. So this
Right.
idea of
Well,
playing.
That also applies to my situation. How do you grade a medical interview? That's the ultimate goal, right? How do you judge that person?
Did the patient live or die?
Well, we don't get that
outcomes,
far.
Jeanette. Outcomes. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
all about
the
outcomes
first
in
interview,
medicine.
right? The first interview you have, like, how do you judge? And this is the big problem. Like, we're limited with how much I can teach them. They only have so much interaction with the actual in the assessment itself. Like, there's so many limitations. So I like the way it's like you want to have the motivation still to keep going, keep trying, getting better every time. I think the repetition is important. That's why I love AI as an AI partner, because repetition. If you are uncomfortable, do it again by yourself with the AI.
Nice.
One chance with a simulated patient in the classroom, but you're struggling, go with the AI and keep going. That self-directed learning is really important for me.
So self-directed learning, of course, is very important. I think that many schools, Japanese education system, there doesn't often lend a lot of time to reflection, and often a lot of the learning happens in the reflection in itself. I teach a debate course, and the tasks that the students do. So of course they prepare for the debate, they do the debate, they get a score for performance, they get a score for the preparatory section, but they also get a score for their audience participation, which is a report that they give on what other people did, and they also do a report on their own debate. And so for me, I have them not only reflect on what they've done, but I ask them to reflect on the reflection. So, i.e., they give it a graded score, and I tell them, so like C is the basic, B is good, A was great, and A plus is that you have gone beyond the standards that we had set as the highest expected standard. And so by the students marking on the grade that they give themselves to the reflection, then gives me assurance that they either they understand the concept of the reflection and how they're to do it properly, or if they are far away from the mark that I'm expecting them to be. And then that gives me fuel to then go back in. So the post-debate class, where I give them tips and feedback, so that gives me fuel for them to say, right, so like in general, most people are understanding, most people did do the task as they were supposed to do. And so for me, I think that there's more truth in learning in those reflections than there are in just, like getting the right answer, like for...
Can I ask or comment or, little pushback here? I as part of my AI bot that I'm developing, feedback is incorporated. And this came up recently of how much feedback, like you have the rubric and you have not 1,000, but you have 20 things on the rubric. Did they do them all? And one of the big questions that comes up, and I heard from you, is how much feedback do you give them to learn for the next time, right? And
how much is actually actionable? Yeah.
Yeah. And so we get overloaded with, I did 2 out of the 10 things. I have 8 more things to do. That actually doesn't help them. This is my experience, right? This is my learning, my reflective learning. Actually, I learned through the VR with James, especially an audio situation, because he's speaking to you in the VR set, not written anywhere where you can reflect and look and slowly look at. If you speak all the things that are wrong from the interview and look at all the rubric parts, it's too much. So we just made a quick limitation of 2 things. Let's next time work on 2 things. And then we can remember those and say, I didn't introduce myself. I didn't have a follow-up question. And then next time, this is it. So I want to ask you back, Brian.
The difficulty with assessment is, especially with a rubric, our points are stuck in boxes, and so if you're stuck within boxes, you will not get any out of the box thinking.
Yes.
You limit yourself within doing that. Whereas I very much believe that people should be able to write an open reflection. And there should be guidance of like what makes up a good reflection. There should be exemplars that are given, and then people should be given that standard. So of course, the scoring system, as I understand it, is C, B, A. A is the highest expected standard, and an A plus or AA is that the students have gone beyond that highest expected standard. And so at the start of the course, we should explain what is the highest expected standard that we expect you to do. This is what an A would look like. And if you go beyond that, that is when you're in that AA category, which actually satisfies the university as well, because they have a certain quota or
it's the outcome
percentile
thing. I can. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Cepher descriptors, like are basic categorizations to hopefully put you into a band. But I think that there should always be that scope for. I think like my kids, like say, they come back from school and say, "Oh, Daddy got Hyaku 10." You say like so, but you were limited. There was only 100 that you could get.
That's what I was going to say. There should always be in the next level. The next level. Why is there a max
That's why it's important to have A plus. You have gone beyond the highest expected standard, and that also accommodates returnees and students who are like quite brilliant.
Well, I actually find that limiting to the returnees. They think, "Oh, I've done it. I'm good. I don't have to study." And actually, I find them doing worse because of that. They think, "Oh, I checked all the boxes, didn't I? I'm done."
I think
they don't push themselves. They don't even grow.
This seems like an argument for teachers in particular to consider the relative merits of evaluation that approaches things in terms of measuring student levels versus benchmarking students' capabilities. And this is also something that would vary very much between the
standards
kind of maybe customized, the customized bot they're talking about, or the design of a particular game, right? Some of them are going to be able to actually support a student in going beyond the level that they're at, and will be very individual in the quantification they can provide, right? Whereas benchmarking simply is, did you pass the post? Oh, okay, you passed the post. I guess you're good. And
I like that.
We need to have a mixture of both, don't we? Levels and benchmarks.
Yeah.
Can I give you guys an example of a rubric that I used when I was doing accreditation for international school? So when I worked at Nagoya International School, we were getting accreditation by IRCOS, which is kind of like both like East Asian regional colleges and schools. And we went through a whining rubric, and everybody said, "A wine rubric?" And we said, no, a whining rubric. And so like the lowest score of the whining rubric, so to get a 1, like the whine was ineffective, or it was unidentifiable, it lacked like clear purpose or volume. But what is the most effective whine? So the purpose was really clear, and a very specific target achieved its goal. Like that everybody, paid attention to the whine. Like for example, like neighborhood dogs to howl. Like how high is their frequency and volume? Like to reach it. So I think like good silly examples like that. Like give people a bit of fun and play. Like as they're learning and developing.
Can I ask a question about that?
Better rubrics, yeah.
So we have a place to whine in my university, right? So, it's top down. It's like if a whine comes all the way up to the top, it comes right back down to you and says, "Okay, there's been a complaint," right? I don't know if this is the same thing, but it's like...
that would be an effective whine then, right? That would be an effective whine because it reached the highest echelon.
You have 100 students who are, most of them are content and happy. You get survey results. And then you get that 10%, that whine, right? And that's the only voice you should be listening to from my perspective at the end. What was their issues? Because most people don't care enough. But if that whine factor is high enough, they're going to say something, right? Is that kind of where you're headed?
With any data, you're going to have outliers. Where someday it's just hello and they're whining already. You're thinking, right, okay, I'm not going to listen to that voice. Or you've got this student.
We've all had students like that
at the opposite end who is going to say, "No, it's fine, and you're thinking, like, for the love of God, complain. It's not fine. It's
tell me something,
awful.
Right? Yeah.
I guess most people have a questionnaire at the end of their course, of assessing the course, assessing the teacher, assessing yourself. And I often say to the students, don't choose 3.
Yeah. Or don't give them a 3 option. All right.
You know, like
Yeah.
it's like it's either a 1 or a 5. You know, like it's a 1 or a 5, and so commit to it. You know, like and if you really can't commit to the 1 or 5, you can choose 2 or 4. You know, like, but you're either on one side of the fence or the other, and with that, you can gather meaningful data and meaningful
Right.
change.
We had to
But if
prompt
you
that
don't,
though, right?
yeah, and so I mean, like, I think that's legit to do, and I think that, you know, like, people are indecisive. But, you know, as James was saying, you like give you more opportunities to do the same thing again, and then you get used to it and say, like, no, like, I can be decisive, and I can, you know, like, make my voice heard.
So Brian, from this, what I'm getting is that your feedback sessions must be a back and forth mixture of milk and honey and fire and brimstone. Is that pretty much what we're looking at there?
So I think too often the teachers that we don't ever remember or don't pay attention to are the ones that just played it by the book. And, you know, like, students,
They were the 3.
yeah, they were the 3. Yeah, how was it? Yeah, fine. You know, even I say to, like, students, you know, like, when somebody says, like, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. And you? What does it mean?
I have learned very, very quickly. I'm either a 1 or a 5. They either like me or they hate me.
And I say to students, it's okay to not like something, and it's okay to say you don't like it. You know, like, and I think, like, so back with, like, our conference theme, you know, like, sometimes it's cold and sometimes it's hot. You know, like, and it's usually more cold than it is. You know, like, we get lots and lots of failures in things that we do, and that's okay, because that's the learning stage.
And we need to tell our students, I failed. Forgive me. Let's try to fix it. I think that's the opportunity that we need to have.
Even like in many of my courses, well, not all of them, but in many of my courses, I'll say to the student the example of the student A, student B, and the B student. So B student in different assessments, they got a B, a B, a B, a B, and a B. Okay, what is that student's average final score? Slam dunk. Everybody knows it's a
B.
C.
B, right? Okay. But you have student A, and student A at the beginning, they got an F, right? Or they got, you know, like, and then they got a C, and then they got a B, and then they got an A, and their final one was an A plus. What is their final score?
You want to give them an A, don't you?
Right.
But that's
so you're
not
all very decisive for the first one. The first one's is an easy question, right? And so I was thinking,
I don't like the fact that the person who's B started at B and never improved, right?
Right.
If you
so
look
that
at it reflectively.
So that's the point. You know, like,
that's
so
why
this
I gave them a C.
This person.
but how do we explain that to our admin? Say, then the student complains, but my grade was a B. I saw it. Why am I a C now?
I overwhelm my admins with data. I send them a spreadsheet that has multiple calculations and all the data from everything that I gather from the students every year. And they occasionally ask me questions about it, and they often regret it. But no, I basically give them all they want. And I say, look, I understand what you're asking here. This is the reason why. And I don't know if maybe calling it aggressive transparency is a little bit too on the nose, but it's pretty close to that when it comes to how I approach.
I think that's really important. Transparency is important.
I think it's important too. Definitely
recording it.
Yeah.
And also, when you do try the out of the box with AI or tech or anything, something new the students are not used to, you have to make sure everything is transparent. Understand the stakes of it. Right now, that's the biggest thing. I'm doing this new thing with AI. The first thing, the question is, how is that affecting my grade if it fails? If the tech fails, what happens? And I have to say, this is just trying. It's not going to affect your grade if it fails. There's an alternative. This is the alternative. Do this instead if that technology fails, right? It's something what James pointed out earlier. What if I die? There has to be the next step, the alternative.
So if the students are writing a reflection on the failure, you know, like, that can still be, you know, like, the thing that gets
Right.
them
I
the score.
agree.
You know, like, so like I had a failure. Like if you ask the scientist how many of your experiments were a success this year, and say like, well, about
99.
99% of the
We're not.
experiments. But in the
Mm.
end, you know, like we came up with a new drug, or we came up with a new marker, or we came up
My
with it, and
probe
say like,
for my
so
first
all the
research paper.
99 doesn't matter, because in the end,
Yeah.
you know, like you got a slam dunk, you know, like,
And I
so
would
you
like to
can.
pipe in. That's why I have not many papers published right now, because I've had so many failures and iterations. It's hard to publish when you're constantly changing things every 10 minutes.
Well, actually, even if you do have material to publish, most journals do not accept stuff about failure.
Failure.
Yeah.
It has changed a little bit recently, but
We're
mostly they
trying to
only want to
open that up
publish
this year, right?
successes.
Let's loop that back
Yes.
around, right? JALTCALL
Well,
is going to accept your
this is
failure
an
stories, right?
absolutely perfect turning point for us to move to section 3 of the podcast right here and talk about the theme and why you guys think it's important. So everybody, welcome back to part 3 of today's podcast. We have James and Jeanette here with us, the co-chairs for JALTCALL 2026. The theme of the conference is one that they selected together: prevail or fail. Tell us about your failures and your successes, and maybe how each led to the other. Guys, how did you come up with this theme, and why is it important to you?
Okay. The original idea was actually Jeanette, so I was expecting her to speak first. But the idea was about techno-stress and the fact that as practitioners that are using technology in our contexts, there are things that can go wrong, right? With the tech, speaking personally then, excuse me. I had a class back in 2015 or something. I was using Minecraft in the classroom. I was trying to, at least, in like a call lab. I had microphone problems, server problems, switcher problems, just all sorts of problems. And it just kind of, it was a right nightmare. And I think that kind of experience is never documented. We only ever see the kind of clinical pristine results of a study in journals, which is something that Jeff was just talking about. Whereas actually the day-to-day job of being a language teacher can be fraught with these technical failures, especially, again, from a core perspective. Problems, failures, hiccups, all these kind of things that don't really get talked about. And in a way to kind of alleviate this idea of techno-stress, I think it might be useful, or we think it might be useful, to have teachers actually verbalize these problems that they've had in order to then find that, oh, actually the whole of the audience has had this similar problem. It's not just me, and maybe find some peace of mind in the fact that they're not the only ones that are having these problems. And then at the same time, also find the successes, which are then the best practices. So it alleviates this idea of techno-stress, perhaps, and also gives them something to take home based on the successes and the best practices.
So kind of like
That's
a teacher's staff room where people get.
That's the idea. We really would like to see people talk about the failures that they've had. And I personally, this morning, I was just talking to Jeanette before we came on, but I submitted myself. I wasn't going to submit anything, but I was like, I should practice what I preach. And I submitted a paper I submitted to do a presentation about the failures that I've had and how I got over them. So I hope that other teachers do the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. We talk about, I learned about techno-stress, actually, I think at JALTCALL. I'm trying to remember the person.
You're saying that we caused you techno-stress? Is that what you're saying?
No. I mean, I have techno-stress all the time, and I play with it all the time. But can you imagine these teachers that we see every day at JALT, not JALTCALL, the big JALT, who still say, I just use it a little bit when I ask a question about something. They don't actually actively use it in a classroom. They're still hesitant. There's a lot of people still out there. So we all are at different positions. This is like my class I'm talking about. We start at different levels, and then we have to all meet at the same level at the top. No. So our students are facing the same thing with not only English proficiency problems, but also technical proficiency differences as well. So our students are already arriving in the classroom with different levels of comfort. And so there's different views of techno-stress, the student and us, and probably the admin, the top down of techno AI shouldn't be used in the classroom at all. Like there's also that struggle. So all of us are still trying to figure out how technology, even AI, fits in our world, in the classroom, in our research, in our daily lives. And so I, as someone who dabbles a lot, like to share my experiences of first how to enter into it. First, keep it simple. Start here and then test it yourself, and don't have any expectations. And then the same with students. Let's just try it out and give them an easy scaffolding tasks to understand. Okay, first try this, and then the ultimate goal is to use it like this. And that's how we can help the students deal with the techno stress, and making sure they understand the stakes of each of these tasks that they're doing. And so I've experienced that on a daily basis, techno stress, and I haven't done a lot of publications of my research project because of all the issues of the technology changing so fast itself, that I have to keep on iterating it from my perspective of how I use it. And there's no clear data set that I can, like, actually I have a data set that's based on ChatGPT 3.5 right now. I want to write a paper about it, but we're at 5 now. Is that relevant? I question that all the time. And
5.2.
Right, 5.2. So
well, like, if you wait long enough, a time machine will pop up and you can just jump back into it.
I mean, but that's how our if we're not fast in getting out data and then writing about it, is that quality data? Is that a quality report? Is that what we should be doing? And I've hesitated, and so that's part of the techno stress of it. It's like it's moving so fast. And I can't even publish in time to share what I've learned.
Do you guys publish like yourself through your own? I know, James, you said that you've got your ludic pedagogy journal, but do you also blog your information? So like putting it out on your own systems?
No, just on a Discord server that I have with friends that I just talk about it there, basically.
My way is through presentations. I've done a lot of presentations. So because it's so fast, presentations, even between months, like I have PanSig and then next month is JALTCALL, things happen between that 1 month. And I have to think 6 months in advance by when my abstract is due this month, right? But I had to think, where am I? How is technology going to be changed? It's going to be so different. If I present last year's stuff that's happened in this year's conference, it's old news almost, I feel. So that's part of the techno stress.
Do you think journals have to fundamentally change to adapt to that?
It depends on the field. I tell my students this all the time. When you look for a reference, and if it's a COVID reference, you shouldn't look in 2020. That's old news. You should look at 2025 or even 2026. Last month, what happened to COVID? How is the research now? But that's the same with AI. You don't want to look 3 years ago, what was AI doing? You want to look at what's AI doing now. But that doesn't mean all research is like that. Gaming, like you just complained earlier, James, like there is no topic on that you know for place. No one's talking about what you're talking about. Or maybe they talked about it 20 years ago. Now they're not. So,
sometimes it's just knowing where to look. So, like James, you're talking about like analog games. So, I've published before on, in Japan we call recreation games. So in Britain we call them playground games. And so in Europe there are the different organisations that do have like regularly documented workshops and sessions, like where they're actually like doing different things like that. And so I think the fear now is that with everything being just the volume of stuff that we have like online is just trying to like get visibility, like and even get eyes on work that you have done. So it's kind of tough. So on that,
I understand that. Yeah, just to riff on that very slightly, if you don't mind. I think that we are kind of underneath a sea of information all the time, and it's hard to stand out, and you don't know where to put your stuff. So I think that's why I don't publish as much as I perhaps should, because I'm more just focused on the craft of teaching. It might sound like a cliche, but it's like
absolutely same. Yeah.
No, I love that.
I'm there for the students. My seminar class means a lot to me, and I put a lot of effort into making sure that runs well. But I just don't have the bandwidth to do the hustle. Like the hustle just doesn't seem worth it to me. I'd much rather spend my time doing what I'm doing. Yeah,
that goes to the
practitioner.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I hate collecting the data from the students. Do this survey when they're already struggling with just opening up the app and doing it. Like the actual struggle of doing it and then having to report about it. That's stress for me.
It's in the way of having fun, doesn't it?
Right. Exactly. I mean, Jeanette, what you're talking about is one of the reasons why I'm trying to put something together where I can pull student data without them having to report it to me directly. Trying to use an API within our Microsoft system that lets you get it all out and just have them write it, and then you can pull it and export it.
Right.
And I think Brian was trying to move us on right now to get both of you guys
I just going to loop that back into the medical context, if you don't mind. We call invasive measures versus a non-invasive. So this is part of the stress, right? So in medicine, a non-invasive means I just take a urine sample and test what's wrong with you versus getting a blood sample. Yeah. So we want to look at the non-invasive way of collecting and learning and making our classes better, right? That's part of our jobs, right?
Invasive versus non-invasive. That's nice. I like that.
Cool. Sorry, I was just thinking about like doing sample tests, but we don't want to do that in the is that your apple juice? No, it's my sample for the doctor. Right. Okay. So back to the point we're trying to get to is for recommendations. So do you guys have some recommendations that you can share with listeners? Either like a process, a strategy, a book, a chapter, or some system that you're using?
Yeah, you're just going to have to read my book, honestly. It's called, I'm not even joking. If you want to learn more about this, it's called Freedom to Play, a Ludic Language Pedagogy Primer. It's a 600-page tome, which will take you through 3 MA courses worth of game literacy, literacy, and then pedagogical literacy, which culminates in you creating your own curriculum at the end of it. It also gives you a whole spiel about the philosophy and the underlying reasons why we chose this word ludic and what it means and how you can apply it in your own context.
That's awesome. I think that's James's point is read what I've preached already, because sometimes that's why we have to publish in the end. It's like, I had to explain this over and over again, or just read that paper, or just
that. Yeah, exactly.
And so that's where my motivation.
This is just a culmination of everything that I've published over the last 10 years.
It's our experiences, it's our legacy, what we've learned. I think that's where I'm at right now. I have over the last 3 years struggled with ChatGPT and the technology around it, and I am now really motivated because I know so much. I want to share it. I want to keep it on record. I want people to see it. So even if they don't know me, they can at least read my words and understand and learn from it and do better themselves.
But for things that are not James York based, like external recommendations, I recommend if you're interested in games if you're interested in games, there's a couple of different things I recommend. The first one would be the Insert Credit podcast, which has a bunch of experts talking about games all the time, from just any period. And the good thing about the Insert Credit podcast is that it's not like game news. It's more like the host poses 10 questions to the the people that answer, the main crew. And they're always like wild questions, like which game would you like to wake up in the morning, or who is the best animal character in a video game and stuff. So it's just kind of really good to improve your game literacy in general. So that's a good one. And if you're interested in like the philosophy of games and play and stuff, I really recommend the book The Grasshopper by Bernard Suits, which is a kind of Socratic backwards and forwards discussion about what is a game and what does it mean to play. It's quite dense in places, obviously, but it's a really, really nice book about what does it mean to play and what is a game. So they're my recommendations.
That book's from 1978. That's quite an old book.
Yeah. It's an old book. It's a really good one, though.
Games, Life, and Utopia.
That's right.
Okay, so we'll get those links into the show notes for everybody to have a look at. So James, your book, so we can get it on Amazon, 13,272 yen. So that's
totally worth it.
It's a big book. It's very, very worth it. Yeah.
So I'll try and order 25 copies for the library.
Please.
Right. Okay, everybody. That is us for today.
Wait a minute. We haven't gotten Jeanette's recommendations yet. Huh?
I do have a comment. I'll keep it short. My biggest
so that
advice.
Means 3 minutes.
Yes, I'm watching the timer. I will keep it short. What I've learned is every time I go to a conference, especially JALTCALL, I see 1,000 new things I want to do, and I get overwhelmed. And that's probably what everyone's feeling, the techno-stress, whatever. Which one do I use? Which one's free? Which one is easy to use? Which one can I actually do? And what I've learned is you don't have to learn them all, but if you have a network of people who can help you together to do something, like I brought in my colleagues, James helped me with the VR. I have someone helping with reflective learning. I had Gary help me with the technology of ChatGPT and using API. You don't have to know everything, but you can build your network. Come to JALTCALL, build a network, collaborate, and let them know their stuff and you know your stuff and put them together like a puzzle. That's how you become stronger. And that's what I've learned by being a part of JALTCALL. Not doing it alone, not learning it all by myself. Actually letting the people who are comfortable with the technology they're already using do their thing, but then work together and do it together. So I'll end with that.
Profound. Thank you.
Great stuff. Right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time on the JALTCALL podcast. Thanks, James. Thanks, Jeanette. Thanks, Jeff. See you all next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was fun. Bye.
See you later, guys. Bye.